In my career, I have all the credentials to be a financial planner. I could say I am a financial planner. I chose not to do that. I have been an entrepreneur all of my adult life. I own real estate, and I've been self-employed since I got married. I have had an automobile garage. Out of 35 years of being married, 3 years I've worked for somebody else. The other 32 years I've worked for me. My wife and I have worked together most of that time. So when I got involved in the financial arena, what was important to me was wealth creation, because I owned a business because I wanted to become financially successful. Now let me qualify the room. Is there anybody in the room tonight that does not hope to, want to be, or wish to be financially successful? Please raise your hand now so we can adjust our conversation accordingly. So I can assume that everybody in the room here tonight is looking for financial or economic answers to better or increase your economic situation. Well, everybody would agree with me in the context, in the traditional way of doing things. What would happen is he would say, well, look, well, if your income is this, at retirement, you can normally live on 30 to 40% less than that, because you're not going to have insurances, and you're not going to continue to make 401k deposits. You're not going to have work expenses and so forth. So you can actually get by on 30 to 40% left after you retire. Now, my average age of my client, folks, is 70 years old. And you know the one thing I know? I don't know anyone that agreed, that said that when they retired that they were comfortable taking a 30 to 40% pay cut. Would you feel comfortable with that? Here's retirement, and it's going to be 30, 40%. See, we find ourselves trying to live a lifestyle based on this income, and then we retire and try to live with 30, 40% less of what we couldn't get by on when we were working. I don't understand how that works in traditional type of advising or helping cost people. Here. Anybody? What was the cost? $50,000. So the first cost was your money. You put in $50,000. What's the second cost? Every year you get a 1099. Is that not correct? Every year you get it. So you've got. And where do you get the money you pay taxes? Don't they just withhold that at work? See, because it's such incremental steps each year, you never realize what's going on. But over this 30-year span of time, you're going to spend $94,000. $94,870 in a 40% marginal tax bracket in income tax. So now, just looking at that, it would be logical and say, well, look, I've got $142,000, $142,305 of profit. Sound right? Logical? But is it? No. The next thing that happens is we have this thing the government calls inflation. What's inflation? Cost of things going up? Yes, but why is that happening? Because the government prints more money. Right now, in the last 2 or 3 years, with interest rates so low, how much money do you think the government's printing and duplicating? Lots. So we're going to use the government's number. The government says inflation has averaged 3%. So at 3% inflation, that's another minus $168,863 lost in purchasing power at this point in time. Now, assuming a 6% rate of return on that, we're going to adjust it for inflation, and we're going to give you back $121,000, because if we use inflation over a period of time, so we're going to give you back $121,000, because those future values are paid with deflated dollars in the future, so there's an inflation adjustment that goes on there. If I take all this down to the bottom math, it really comes down on the bottom. The end result is minus $16,873. So how good of a deal was that? Pretty good deal? But that's the truth. Your financial planner, did the bank ever disclose to you in their, right now we have so much paper that I have to give people for disclosure, the Privacy Act and all the things going on, and I don't see anybody telling in the bank, did you ever hear about compound tax? If you have compound interest, you have compound tax. Isn't that interesting? I've never heard a banker talk about it or talk about those things. Dollars in 1 year, if it earned 100% interest, how much would it be worth? $200,000, right? Now, that may sound crazy, but during the decade of the 90s, especially 1996. These are some of the things that happened with high-tech .com type companies. In year one, they went up by 100% and grew to 200,000. In year two, it went down by 50%. And what was it worth now? How much did you start with? Oh, did you lose any money? Nope. Did you make any money yet? Nope, you're even with the board. Year three comes along, and guess what? Another good year, 100% rate of return on your money. Now it's how much? 200,000 again. You're sort of getting, oh, my neck hurts now, watching it. In year four, guess what happens? Goes down by 50%, and how much money do I have? Did I lose any money?
Not yet.
Did I make any what was my rate of return on my money? Zero. That's honest, right? But you know what the stockbroker would tell you? 100 plus 100 is 200. Minus 50 plus 50 is minus 100, leaves 100, divided by 4 years, and what would the average rate of return be? Isn't that interesting? So when you're talking to your broker and people that are talking about rates of return and say, oh, this investment has averaged over all these years, you have to realize that averages don't work that way. It is a more complex calculation to determine the real rate of return on savings and investments, especially when you have volatility, and one year it's up by 20%, next year it's down by 30%. If you have an account and it's down by 20% in 1 year, how much money do you have to make in the next year rate of return to take it back to where you were? 40. Oh, okay, so that's what's going on. So sometimes there isn't a lot of truth to what goes on. Financial advisors, for the most part, what I find them to be is they are salesmen of financial products. Remember the context. Those folks all work over here in the context, and their goal or their mission for the people they work for is to gather assets for the financial institutions. Now, what do the financial institutions do with our money? It's okay to participate. Don't they make money on our money? Sure. That's how they make their money. Now, how much money are they in business to make? All they can make. That's exactly right. So sometimes when we look at the advice we receive, we have to look, is this really in our best interest, or is it going to be in their best interest, or more or not?